Hey everybody, today I'm going to share with you my 5 tips for getting started with digital note taking. Alright, so here we go. Now before we get stuck into this, don't forget, if you like our content, you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Also make sure you subscribe, click the little bell icon, and then you're going to get notified every time we bring out brand new content for you. So let's start with tip number 1, changing your diagrams. You really want to look at changing the way that your visual diagrams are represented in your work if you want to encourage students to engage in digital note-taking. So I'm going to take this really simple example of this map of Australia. And what you want to do is just find yourself a different version of it that removes the words. So we encourage the students to write with their digital ink. So if I just scroll down quickly here, all I've gone and done is simply got a different version of it whereby there are no names on it. Something that else is really important with digital inking is we always want to set these images to the background. And this kind of forms a fundamental for anything that we do. And I would do this for all of the 5 tips I'm going to give you today. So here we have this option to set as a background. And what that means is the students can go over the top of it and annotate over the top. And it makes life a little bit easier for them. Things don't move around as much. Add to ink up. However, you can use a 2-in-1 device, especially the ones that fold over completely. That makes it a lot easier for students to write on a flat surface. So you can see my examples there where as a student, if I was asked to write out the states in here, I would just be kind of replicating what's there. But if I was learning about this and it was visually there, I'm going to now be encouraged to write on top of the image. So normally in our drawer tools, we will have these options for your different types of pens. So I'm going to click on this pen, and that's if I just want to change it. So you might need to encourage your students to make it a little bit thicker, the way the ink is going to come out. And then as a student, I'm going to be able to write on this. A really big tip with here as well, inside this tip, is make sure that they pinch to zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in here on Queensland, and then that's going to make it a lot easier for me as a student to write in that space. I can then, move across or down wherever it is that I need to go, and then I can write in my next one, so on and so forth. And what's really beautiful about the digital inking is we all know in Australia that this little tiny dot here is the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory. So we would encourage students then to take advantage of the digital inking by circling around of it, drawing out, and then writing in the Australian Capital Territory as their notes. And then when they're finished, they would just pull back out and have their digital ink on the page. Let's look at my second tip here, and it's all about encouraging students to draw. I'm not going to be a leading expert in the research around digital inking and the connections between physically writing compared to typing, but it's definitely there if you want to look into it. And drawing is a huge part of that. The ability to draw a sketch will have much longer memory retention than typing or finding an image to insert. But it's a skill that has to be learned. So I love using these like little icons. And so what I would put in here, as you can see, is the icons ready to go. But this is a teaching and learning tool for them to build the skill, because I'm going to ask them to take them out and remove them. So let's look at this from the student's perspective. They're going to be given this page. I'm trying to encourage them to draw. Now, if they're already there, that's fine. You would give this to them blank and you would ask them to draw a picture icon for each one. Or you might not give them all of them. You might give them something to encourage them to get their confidence moving. And so what I want to do as a student here is I want to pick up my pen again, just like before. Pick a color, I guess, to outline it. I'm going to stick with the black and then going to come back out. So I'm going to pinch back in as well. I might come over here to Western Australia, and I still might be doing the same thing that I was doing before. But I want to also include my diagram, that cognitive load around drawing a visual representation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw and trace over the top of this little shark fin. And I'm going to draw my waves as well. And it doesn't need to be perfect because it's a skill that we're learning around drawing as part of visual note taking. What I can do as a student is I can either leave that might be a really great starting point, or I can come out of draw and then I can tap on the image, and as long as I haven't set it as a background, I could delete it and then come back in and continue my drawing. So I might add another pen here, maybe a slightly thicker pen, and then I might kind of come through with my gray and pick a slightly different shade here as well for the fin, and then switch over to a blue as well. And I've kind of got my own little representation there of my drawing, and I've kind of started to learn this really great skill around sketching on a OneNote page. My third tip is always going to be to encourage you to turn on the lines, especially when we're drawing around objects. So in this particular case, what we want to do is we want to come up to the view options and we want to find our paper styles. And when we click in there, we've got multiple options. You've got grids and you've got lines. I normally recommend kind of going for the thicker option, just a little bit easier, a little bit more space, and just see how you gauge it with your students. So here as a student, I'm going to find this much easier to find a position to write in. So when I've asked to label this and I want to maybe come up here, is that I can use that top line to write on. And as I move along, I'm going to find the most appropriate line for each one. Additionally, we can do what we just learned before, where I can encourage students to trace over the top of this. So I'm no artist, but there is a kind of comprehensive drawn representation that I'm going to remember much better than a picture that I saw. And what I can also do is we can see the lines are still on here, and I can choose even as a student on my iPad to turn those lines off, and we can kind of see how nice and clean and crisp that is now on the page. My fourth tip relates back to the activity that we just done and preparing for that. The biggest thing is that you will probably use resources you already have, and I absolutely support people in that. It's exactly what I do. So in this case, you can see here that this image has this white around it. If I was to change the kind of color of the background, it's a lot more obvious. And so writing on the lines then becomes really hard for students. So I'm going to show you two ways that we fix that. So for Windows, I recommend using PowerPoint or Word. Either of them will work exactly the same. Now, there's my image there with the white background. That's what I need to get rid of. And I've just got a gray background just to make it a little bit more obvious as to what's happening. So I select that image. I make sure that we click here to picture format. And then I want to come over to this option here to remove the background. So when I click on that, it will kind of attempt to guess what you want to keep, and so it's saying that this is all I want to keep, and it's not really. And sometimes you're lucky, it will pick it up, but in this case all you need to do is click on the mark area to keep, and then I can come over with my pen, like you kind of just strike through, and it's pretty good at picking it up. I don't get too fussy about little bits of white there, especially for something like this, and so I'm just going to strike through again, and sometimes even just clicking. And then sometimes these little areas can be a bit tricky, but they do pick them up. They're pretty good. So there it is there. I'm just going to say I'm happy with that. And then going to say keep changes. And then there we go. So you can kind of see based on my gray background, we've lost most of the white. And so what I will do is I'm going to copy that. So I'm back here in my OneNote. So I'm just going to choose to paste that picture in. And you can see the big difference that is between them. Now, just quickly for Mac users have this a little bit easier in my opinion. What we're going to use here is Pages. Pages has a function called Instant Alpha. So I've got just that gray background just to point it out, make it a little bit easier. I'm going to get the original image, I'm going to pop it in, And then over here in the image options for when I want to format, I can choose this instant alpha. So I pick that up and you just click and then drag until you're happy. And so the pink is the area that is going. So I go, yep, happy with that, done. And there it is there as well. So I'm going to choose to copy that. And then just like before, I can come back to my OneNote and there's the diagram again. Okay, then my fifth tip for getting started with your students with digital inking is use visual templates or smart art on your pages. So think anytime where there's a process or a diagram or something, provide that scaffolding. So let's have a look at how we do that. So here in PowerPoint, you have this option to come to insert, and then in insert you have this other one here called smart art, and you could explore shapes and icons and all of that as well, because all of that can be traced and used. But let's say I want to create a timeline and I want to give the visual representation and they will write or draw around it. So I might come through, I might have a look through my options here. I'm going to choose this one here, and then there it is. So I might need to add a few more to this. That's okay. We can just click here to add more. So might need to add a couple more. If I don't want this text, I find it just easiest just to click in it and hit spacebar, and that will kind of clear it out. And then if I want them to write in the box as well, you could come up here to the change color options and pick one of these white background options. So I might go with this green and make it a little bit more predominant there. So just like before, I need to do is select this smart art, and then I just need to copy it, and then I can go back to my OneNote. So here it is there, it's pasted into my OneNote, and here's my activity that I want the students to do. And so that's all they're going to get. There may be other information on the page, but that is pretty much what I want them to draw or write around. So I might be asked to take some important notes here. I may be looking at some content from a PowerPoint or a textbook or something along those lines, and I need to note take this timeline of when they reigned. This is the royal family. So I might want to write in their names as well. So I'm going to go along and do that. We're just going to do one of them just as an example. So I'm going to come into this space. And again, remember, I'm going to pinch in as a student. I don't need to see the whole thing for that to do it. And this is the beauty of digital note taking on something like this. They can get in nice and close. And so I might use this line just like we had before. And I can write down my first name. But then I might choose underneath, this is where I'll write the date range from when they were reigning, sorry. So 1901 to 1910. And then I could go along and just kind of do each one of them as well, or I'm just going to work however feels most comfortable for myself as a student. And so I still have those lines just like what we learned before to work on, and I can move across one by one. But then I have those opportunities, to include my own visual flair as a student if I really want to. I'm not much of an artist, which is why sketching always works really well for me, but I can provide that in, and I can obviously come in here and I've got all of this space to include additional or extra notes. So guys, they are my top 5 tips for teachers who are looking to get started with digital inking. And it's really about getting your students into that mindset around how do you digitally ink. It's not just passively writing something from one page to another. So I hope you have lots of fun. I hope you've probably got lots of ideas. Get in there, give it a go. Your students are going to love it. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.